Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is November 13th. On this day in 1974, tragedy struck a quiet waterfront street in Amityville, Long Island, when 6 members of the DeFeo family were found shot to death in their home. It was a horrifying crime that shocked the community and would go on to become one of the most talked about cases in American true crime history. Over the decades, the house became infamous for alleged hauntings and supernatural claims. But today, we're leaving the legends behind and focusing on what's verifiably known: the murders, the investigation, and the case that followed. Today, we're talking about the Amityville murders. Let's get started. By the fall of 1974, the DeFeo family had lived at 112 Ocean Avenue for nearly a decade. Ronald and Louise DeFeo were raising their 5 children: 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, and 9-year-old John Matthew. Their eldest, Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr., was 23. The house itself was a large Dutch colonial overlooking the Amityville River. It was a picture-perfect home in a nice suburban neighborhood. But in the early morning hours of November 13th, that house became the site of a mass murder that would leave 6 people dead. Early in the morning, November 13th, 1974, 6 members of the DeFeo family were shot in their beds in that Dutch colonial. When police processed the house later that evening, they documented a scene that has unsettled investigators and the public for decades. All 6 victims were found face down, and there were no signs of a struggle. Even stranger, the shootings unfolded across multiple levels of the home, yet there was no contemporaneous disturbance noted by people living nearby, which is an oddity that has remained a focal point in news recaps and anniversary coverage. That evening, Butch DeFeo Jr. ran into a local bar asking for help. He told friends that someone had broken into his family's home. When they went back to Ocean Avenue, they discovered the bodies and called the police. At first, DeFeo told investigators that a mob hitman had killed his family. But before long, his story changed. After he was taken into custody and questioned, he confessed. DeFeo's confession led police to a canal behind the house where he said he tossed the murder weapon. A rifle was recovered and ballistics matched fragments that had been removed from the victims. From a forensic standpoint, the evidence was strong. But still, parts of the crime scene didn't sit right. All 6 victims, like I said, were face down. No one appeared to have moved at any point. And again, no one in the neighborhood reported hearing anything that night. Those details fueled decades of doubt. In 2012, a documentary filmmaker claimed that a diver had pulled a second weapon from the canal, suggesting a possible second shooter. But Suffolk County Police dismissed the idea, stating that there was no evidence of another gunman. The recovered weapon was also too corroded to be definitively linked to the case. What is clear is that Butch DeFeo confessed. The recovered rifle matched the bullets, and a jury later convicted him. Those facts have never changed, but the lingering questions, how the killings unfolded so quietly and why no one stirred, remain part of the mystery. Butch DeFeo's trial began in October 1975. His defense attorney argued that he was mentally ill and not responsible for his actions. A psychiatrist testified that DeFeo claimed to hear voices. But the prosecution countered that he was fully aware of what he was doing and pointed to his actions both before and after the murders. DeFeo himself actually took the stand. He admitted to the killings but claimed that he acted in self-defense, that he believed his family had been plotting against him. The jury wasn't moved. On November 21st, 1975, DeFeo was convicted on 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive terms of 25 years to life. His appeals were denied, and repeated attempts to reopen the case went nowhere. Then, less than a year after the murders, a new family moved into the house, George and Kathy Lutz. They lasted 28 days before fleeing, claiming that the house was haunted. Their story became the basis for the Amityville Horror, a best-selling book and a hit 1979 film that launched a decades-long franchise. But even as the legend grew, doubts surfaced. In 1979, Butch DeFeo's attorney claimed that he and the Lutzes had concocted the haunting story together over drinks. Lawsuits flew between the Lutzes, their legal team, publishers, and filmmakers. Local police said that the Lutzes had never reported anything while they lived in the house. Later owners also said that they experienced nothing unusual, even as the house became an icon in pop culture. Despite that, the Lutzes always stood by their account. Whether they truly believed what they experienced or created a story that spiraled into something bigger remains a matter of debate. What's not up for debate is the core truth. 6 people were murdered in their sleep. Everything that came after, the books, the movies, the legends, doesn't change that. The Amityville case never really left the spotlight. Even decades later, the house was in the news, especially in 2016 when it was listed for sale once again. By that point, the address had changed from 112 Ocean Avenue to 108 Ocean Avenue in an effort to reduce attention. Butch DeFeo died in prison in 2021 at the age of 69. Coverage of his death brought the story back into headlines once more, reminding people of the horrifying events of November 13th, 1974, and the long trail of controversy that followed. Now, over 50 years later, the Amityville murders are still part of our cultural conversation. But behind all the ghost stories and Hollywood scripts is a grim reality. 2 parents and 4 children were murdered in their own home. The trial is settled, the verdict is clear, but the fascination with the case and the debate over what followed continues, and probably will for many more years to come. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this episode compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you get to